thing on turnkey reviews. In my experience so far, if you find any reviews online of turnkey providers, they're probably bad. And I started writing for BiggerPockets in, I think it was 2012 or so. And so I've been at least using BiggerPockets as a platform, as an example. So over the years, I've worked with hundreds of turnkey buyers at this point, hundreds. And yet, all of the reviews, if you see anyone say anything, well, there's a couple of exceptions. People talk good about Memphis Invest, but for the most part, you're going to find bad reviews before you find good reviews. And a lot of people say, well, why is that, or what's going on? Here's what I see happening is when people, so like let's take BiggerPockets as an example, and if anyone's on here who has no idea what BiggerPockets is, it's a huge real estate investing website. It covers all strategies, flipping, rental properties, landlords, turnkeys. So I was a writer for BiggerPockets for a handful of years, and I'm still pretty active on it in the forums. And so in BiggerPockets, knowing the hundreds of buyers, just on the people who worked through me, the hundreds of buyers who bought turnkeys, those people, most of them found me on BiggerPockets. And my experience with BiggerPockets is that you go on BiggerPockets when you really don't know what you're doing just quite yet. You're kind of scouting things out. You're trying to find more information, trying to learn about different strategies and whatever. And then even if you start like flipping or whatever, you may go back to BiggerPockets even once you get started to help learn more, help gain more resources, especially if you're wholesaling. I see a lot of wholesaling questions about getting lists and all that kind of stuff. And the thing with turnkeys is I feel like what happens, and don't quote me on this because it's not official anywhere, is everyone I know who found me on BiggerPockets or somehow knew about BiggerPockets, they come up, they go through the buying process for a turnkey, they buy the turnkey, and they are never to be seen on BiggerPockets again. And my theory for why this is because once you buy a turnkey one time, you know how to do it. Like it's the same process every single time. It's really just that first time that you just don't know what you don't know. So you don't know exactly what's going on or what should happen next, what's your due diligence items, what should be happening, what shouldn't be happening, whatever. But once you go through it one time, you know how to do it. So my theory on why the people who buy the turnkeys disappear and therefore don't leave any reviews is now they don't need something like BiggerPockets anymore. So they found turnkeys, they went through the process, they learned what they needed to do, and they can keep doing that over and over. And at that point, it's kind of like whatever they were looking for in real estate is kind of satisfied, unless they're going to come back and start burring or do something more complicated. But if you think about it, turnkey owners don't really have a reason to linger around once they've learned what they need to learn, gone there for what they need to go for, and been through the buying process once. So with that little ramble said, I feel like that's why there aren't more positive reviews, because like I said, I've worked with hundreds of turnkey buyers, and I've seen one positive review put online, and that's not in comparison with negative reviews. That's just one positive review saying, oh yeah, I had this great experience. But it's, again, they just kind of did that to be nice type of thing. But again, they're just not online anymore. And I know a few years ago, oh, before I go ahead, but people who have bad experiences, and there's only been, I'd say of the hundreds that I've worked with, most of the bad experiences have come from the BRRRR model, which is terrible for me to say because the BRRRR plus turnkey model, it's terrible for me to say because I'll give you updates on our BRRRR plus turnkey trip coming up soon, because there is more risk in that strategy. But as far as the standard turnkeys go, I can only think of about 2 situations in the past, how long have I been doing this, 7 years or so, that have just been like freak of nature bad. Like there was nothing anyone could have done to prevent it. It just was kind of it's a rental property, something can happen. But over the years, I've only seen, the only people who really have motivation to come back online, like BiggerPockets or any other platform, is if they have something bad to say. So a lot of people get really turned off about turnkeys because they only see bad reviews. And it's not, seeing only bad reviews is not, based on my experience of the hundreds of people, I keep saying hundreds because it's my sample size, those are just the people who are motivated to say something. All the rest of them, so there's so few people that have had bad experiences, but they say something and it sounds really loud. but there's all these other people that have just not given their positive experiences. And quite often, I mean, all the time, we reach out to people a few months into owning a turnkey and we say, hey, how are things going? Any complications, any challenges? And we get tons of good reports back. So I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent here to get back to your question. The question was having somewhere to go to get reviews and feedback on turnkey providers. So a few years ago, what I was about to say is a couple of people on BiggerPockets actually started, I think it's turnkey-reviews.com, or it's something like turnkey-reviews.com, maybe with a dash or a period or something. And the intention was to gather exactly what you're asking, is have people give feedback on their experience with turnkey providers. Well, it sounded phenomenal in theory, and I was even like, I was stoked because I thought I could learn some more, because I'm always looking for good turnkey providers outside of just who we work with. And I haven't been on that site in a long time, but as far as I know, it never really picked up steam because, again, satisfied turnkey buyers, first of all, they're probably kind of busy in their life anyways, which is why they want a turnkey, and second, they're just not lingering around online anymore. And you know, we kind of try and ask people to give reviews for this exact reason, but there's just not a lot of reviews on turnkey providers out there. And other than my theory on the happy turnkey providers the happy turnkey investors are just not super motivated to write reviews, I think it's also a little bit of a transient kind of thing because turnkey providers are changing hands a lot, other than the big guys like Memphis Invest and those who stick around forever. But yeah, so Andre, I am 100% with you. It would make life much easier to have reviews on everybody. But so far there hasn't really been a place for that to happen for the reasons I said. And also, one thing, when you read a bad review, I can tell you, and this is not, I don't say this in any way to be in defense of turnkeys or to defend against these people's experiences. And in a couple of cases, the experiences have been completely legit. But I can tell you, having been on the seller side, if you will, I'm not officially on the seller side, but I see both sides, unlike a lot of people. And I'm constantly having to deal with the seller psychosis. That is now my new favorite term. Some of the people who have put bad reviews on have been, how could I put this? They did not help their own cases at all. Quite often, a lot of details have been left out on their part. I hesitate to say too much because I don't want, in case anyone watching or listening to this might figure out that I'm talking about them. Oftentimes, the investors are receiving a lot more offers to help than they're taking. So quite often, they're not taking the help when it's offered. Quite often, they're making really strange decisions. They're just not helping their own cases. And that's, again, not true for everyone who wrote a bad review. There are some legit bad reviews on there. But quite often, I can tell you, having seen both sides of the equation, that it can oftentimes still be hard to get to the truth. Now, granted, if we had one spot, I was just thinking, I was looking at the computer, I was like, could I start something that has reviews for people? But I feel like some of the same problems would come in. If we had a spot where a lot of people were leaving reviews, kind of like a Yelp for turnkeys, like the nice thing about Yelp, if you think about it, it shows the average number of stars, because that way, if someone just is terrible and leaves 1 star for no good reason, all the 5 stars are going to make up for it. So if we had some kind of way of averaging the reviews, or the stars, if you will, then that might be more accurate. But right now, you kind of only get single responses. And so just always remember, anytime you see one of those, always know that it's not necessarily the case that the investor was not shooting themselves in their own foot. Also, I feel like I said that in a very nicely filtered way, so it seems like I'm talking about nobody specific, in case anyone's watching.